Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. On the UFC Fight Night, Dolidze versus Imavov takes place tomorrow night. Okay, I'm very late coming out with my picks video. I do apologize for that, but whatever, dude. Better late than never. I'm going to be going over every single fight on this card, start to finish, giving a brief preview and my prediction for every single fight on the card. We will start right away with the first fight of the night, which is Thomas Peterson versus Jamal Pogues. Now, I am going to be picking Thomas Peterson on this one. Jamal Pogues has not impressed me at all since joining the UFC, if I'll be honest. Doesn't have a whole lot of finishing ability that you might expect to see from a heavyweight. He looked pretty damn sloppy his last time out against Mick Parkins, who I think that was Mick Parkins' first decision that he ever went to. He's gone 1-1 since joining the UFC, which he got a contract on the Contender Series off of a decision, which in my opinion is really only due to how shallow the heavyweight division is, right? Peterson, on the other hand, is a finisher, coming off of a finish on the Contender Series via key lock, which was his first sub, by the way, and that's a pretty advanced submission to be hitting from a guy who primarily knocks his opponents out, doesn't necessarily use grappling a whole lot. He's never been to decision, so every other finish aside from that key lock has been by way of knockout, and I feel like with those abilities on the ground, if he's not able to get it done on the feet, or if he's not having success on the feet, or even finds himself in trouble, he's got a plan B that he can go to that Jamal Pogues hasn't really showed us throughout his career. He's not all that great when it comes to the grappling exchanges, so I will be going with Thomas Peterson. I do think he finds the knockout here because Jamal Pogues will want to stay on the feet with him, in my opinion, and Jamal Pogues doesn't necessarily have the knockout power to gain respect or to back Thomas Peterson off, whereas I think Thomas Peterson does. Now, moving up the card, too, Quinones versus Medeiros. Hold on, let me say their first names, dude. Sorry, Landon Quinones versus... Fuck me, dude. Landon Quinones versus Markel Medeiros, okay? All right. Quinones lost against Nasrat Haqparast his last time out, who was a little inconsistent at times. That was his debut, to be fair. And Nasrat Haqparast, well, he is inconsistent, as I said. When he is on, okay? But also, he lost to Jason Knight on The Ultimate Fighter. It doesn't count towards his pro record because it was an exhibition bout, okay? He got submitted. Medeiros coming off a first-round knockout on the Contender Series. Vast majority of his wins are by way of knockout. Hasn't necessarily fought the best competition, though, to be fair. You see this a lot with the guys coming up in the Contender Series, and then oftentimes you see their finishing rate plummet, right? Because beforehand they were fighting dudes 5-5, 8-8, shit like that, and then they get to the UFC and all of a sudden they can't finish a fight to save their fucking life. But regardless, this actually, in my opinion, seems to be a pretty even matchup, right? In terms of size, strength of schedule as well, and both of them win most of their fights by knockout. I'm kind of torn on who I would go with. I am gonna go with Medeiros here. I think he's a little bit more dynamic on the feet. I think he's got a bit of a wider arsenal to draw from. Also seems to be a fast starter. He's got quite a few first-round KOs. Now, to be fair, Quinones does as well, but I think that Medeiros, with the extra attacks and shit that he will have, will get off to a better start. Now, I'd imagine that he starts chopping the legs off immediately. I could see a KO, but to be honest, dude, just because these guys are so evenly matched, I would not be surprised if this went to a decision. Now, moving up the card, 2, Luana Carolina versus Julija Stoliarenko. Who gives a fuck, okay? Carolina hasn't gotten a finish in 8 years, which was outside the UFC, by the way, so she's never gotten a finish in the UFC. She got knocked out by Molly fucking McCann, so I'm going to go with Julija Stoliarenko to win via armbar, all right? Moving up the card, 2. Ji Young Lee versus Blake Bilder. All right, Ji Young Lee has a very nice variety of wins. They're split up almost perfectly evenly between knockouts, submissions, and decisions. Blake Bilder is absolutely fucking horrible on the feet, in my opinion, and Lee is pretty good on the ground also. He's got a bit of a specialty. He's got 3 arm bars there. I don't think Blake is going to be able to just dominate him on the ground. Blake Bilder's kind of small for this division, honestly, or maybe he's more natural for this division, but you see these guys that cut a bunch of weight, like Kyle Nelson, who was able to beat the brakes off of Blake Bilder. You could tell that there was a pretty big size discrepancy as well as a strength discrepancy in that fight, right? And Kyle Nelson's very inconsistent also, so I picked Blake Bilder to win that one, or Bilder, and he didn't. So anyways, he'll be at a reach disadvantage, significant one, against a guy who is a better striker, right? He'll be at a size disadvantage against a guy who is a good grappler, so I don't think he's going to be able to implement his game plan that he's going to want to, right? Also, Ji Young Lee, his resume is actually pretty underrated. He's fought a lot of guys and beat a lot of guys with really good records, like with, 20-3 and shit like that. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets him out of there with a TKO, though Blake Bilder has not ever been finished, all right? Moving up the card, 2, Temba Garimbo versus Pete Rodriguez. I'm going to have to go with Temba Garimbo here. It does concern me a little bit just because Pete Rodriguez can fucking crack, but the size disparity is insane, okay, on this one. Temba Garimbo, 6'1", 77-inch reach. Pete Rodriguez, 5'9" with a 73-inch reach, right? This is a crazy size discrepancy to see at welterweight. Pete Rodriguez is fun to watch, but his most recent win, dude, is Mike fucking Jackson. And that's his only win in the UFC, okay? Who is garbage. He's a piece of shit. And I don't... when the fuck was the last time he fought? Either way, dude. His other recognizable opponent is Jack Della Maddalena, who got him out of there in the first round, right? Jack Della Maddalena is not a giant welterweight either, okay? Now, he can't crack, and he's very good with the hands, so I'm not holding that against him all that much, but Themba Gorimbo is fucking huge, okay? So I'm going to favor Gorimbo with experience, size, and skill as well. Only problem is he's not a finisher on the feet. Most of his finishes come by submission, and I think that Pete Rodriguez is going to be a dangerous guy to close the distance on. Do you know what I mean? But with such a large reach advantage and things like that, I think he can work his way in carefully and not just rush in and get fucking clipped. Also, the guys that Pete has KO'd either have no experience whatsoever or they've literally got more losses than they do wins. So I'm going to go with Themba Gorimbo to get this one done by decision, because I don't think that Pete Rodriguez is just going to be steamrolled in the grappling department. Moving up the card, too. Azat Maksum versus I think that's how you say his name, dude. Versus Charles Johnson. No fucking way am I ever picking Charles Johnson again. I picked him, I think, the last 3 times, and he's done me wrong all 3 times, dude. I always thought maybe, oh, after that one, he'll realize that I need to open up a little bit more, not be constantly concerned with the takedown, right? And not just get away from my offense entirely to stop that takedown, but every time he does the exact same thing. He always lets me down in that regard. He doesn't open up until it's much too late, and then at that point, you're a flyweight, you've got to try and get a finish with the hands, and it's just not happening for him, right? Lost 4 of his last 6. He's getting up there in age, as far as flyweights go, right? He's 33 or whatever, but Azat Maksum, I'd imagine, will use a lot of takedowns. Even if he's not trying to finish the fight from there, though he does have quite a few submission victories on his record, I think that he will just use it to fucking completely stalemate Charles Johnson's offense. If you just shoot a bunch of takedowns, Charles Johnson's going to be concerned about it. He's shown it in his last, 5 fights. Do you know what I mean? So, you'll just freeze him. Anyways. Guy's 17-0, 5 knockouts, 6 subs, 5 decisions. So the guy's capable everywhere. It's not like if he's stuck on the feet with Charles Johnson, he's completely out of his depth, right? Also, he's from Kazakhstan, okay? So there's that. But honestly, if Charles Johnson was a little bit more active, I believe in him a hell of a lot more, and I would pick him to win, because I think that when he does let his hands go, he's fucking good, dude. He's good, but he just doesn't, right? He just has a problem where he can only focus on one thing at a time, it seems, or at least that's what it seems like to me, right? If a guy's shooting takedowns on you, he can't focus on both his offense and then focus on defending the takedown when it comes. He's solely focused on defending the takedowns. You kind of saw it against Muhammad Makayev, who I kind of thought he actually should have won that one, but and a couple others, right? So anyways, I'm going to go with Azat Maksum by decision. Moving up the card, dude. Molly McCann versus Diana Belbita, all right? I think I'm going to pick Molly McCann here. This is almost a tailored matchup, in my opinion, to get her back in the win column, right? It's a rematch, which, why are we having a rematch between 2 fucking, unranked women? Do you know what I mean? Which Molly McCann won the first time around via unanimous decision, and Diana Belbita hasn't looked very good since then. She's dropped 3 of her last 5. I guess that's why Molly is almost a minus 300 favorite. But what the fuck, dude? How can you ever trust? I would never bet that shit. Molly McCann as a minus 300 favorite is insane. Because you never know, dude. She could just barrel roll into a fucking armbar, and you've lost all your money. And for what? Do you know what I mean? I'll go with her to get this one done, I guess, because Belbita isn't dominant enough on the ground, in my opinion, to just go and get Molly McCann out of there with a submission, right? She's been submitted as many times as she has submitted other girls. Diana Belbita's never been TKO'd, but maybe Molly puts it on her enough. Maybe Molly knows she's got to get a win real fucking bad, and she, gets a standing TKO or something like that. I don't think we'll see her flatline this chick with another elbow, but you never fucking know, dude. Moving up the card. Gilbert Urbina versus Charles Radke. I'm going to go with Gilbert Urbina to get this one done here, possibly by a KO or a TKO. Dude has a massive reach advantage, huge striking advantage in my opinion. Charles Radke, while he won his debut, kind of looked like shit, had a pretty boring fight, and then got real butthurt at the crowd and started shouting slurs, which is honestly kind of based, but also, dude, chill, because your fight sucked, right? He's been knocked out only once before in his career, and if you look at who that guy was against, it's against a guy who's a very similar body type to Gilbert Urbina, much taller, lankier, longer than Charles Radke, and that's who got him out of there. The only other time he's been been fucking knocked out. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like Gilbert Urbina could utilize some of those longer weapons and have a lot of success with that against Charles Radke. Gilbert Urbina, in my opinion, is actually kind of underrated. Dude, he lost to Brian Battle in the UFC, but I think Brian Battle is very good. I think he's very underrated, and I think that he could actually have a pretty prosperous career in the UFC. Also, he lost to Sean Brady in the LFA, and he took him to a decision, which is pretty impressive considering how dominant Sean Brady has been up until now, obviously, aside from losing to Bilal Muhammad. Now, he did get knocked out on tough, but that was against Tresean Gore, who hits like a fucking truck. Again, much like the guy that got subbed by Jason Knight. Doesn't go on your pro record because it's an exhibition bout, but regardless, dude. Both of his pro losses, in my opinion, are against very good competition. I'm not going to hold that against him all that much, whereas Charles Radke, I wasn't overly impressed. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, dude, moving up the card, Elias Kazriev, okay, Kazriev, I don't know, versus Makhmud Muradov. I'm going to go with Kazriev here, I guess, man. I hope that's how you say his name. Honestly, I was a little bit torn picking this one also, but Muradov hasn't had that much success in the UFC. He's been pretty inconsistent. He has been around for a while longer, so he's fought better guys, in my opinion, but he's, you know, he's got a lot of finishes too, but I don't know, man. He just seems to be real hit and miss. Elias Kebab, dude. That's what I'm calling him. Finished Dennis Talulin in his debut, who, in my opinion, is pretty good also. He had a good mix of ways of how he gets it done. I'd imagine he's going to be using a grappling heavy approach, considering Makhmud Muradov, most of his wins are by knockout, and you probably don't want to be on the feet with him a whole lot. And I think that he'll be able to do that because Muradov has been subbed 4 times throughout his career. So if he does get taken down, I don't know how much I trust in him to be able to get out of it. Also, he's been choked out with a rear naked a couple of times, and that is Elias Kebab's shit, dude. The guy's got a ton of rear naked chokes on his record, so I could see him sinking in a rear naked choke late first round, maybe in the second. Moving up the card to Viviane Araújo versus Natalia Silva. The odds on this are fucking crazy, dude. I don't understand it. Natalia Silva's a minus 340, okay? And if I'm being honest, while she very clearly beat Andrea Lee, in my opinion, her striking was kind of exposed in that matchup. And not even really by Andrea Lee, just the fact that it went outside of the first round. Right now, she doesn't set a whole lot of shit up. And after about the first round, there's a real drop-off in power, technique, and speed because she kind of throws everything into those big kicks that she throws. Do you know what I mean? And it seems as though she can only really throw everything into them for about 5 minutes. And while Viviane is pushing 40, she's coming off of a win over Jennifer Maia, who has been like a long-time staple in the women's division. Do you know what I mean? Who is, you know, a better girl, in my opinion, than most of Natalia Silva's opponents, maybe even all of them. I am going to go with Natalia Silva here. I'll tell you what, though, I wouldn't fucking put money on this one. They're both shorter girls, so I think that will favor Natalia Silva and her striking rate, whereas Andrea Lee, a little bit taller, a little bit longer. But I'll be honest, dude, I would not be surprised even a little bit if we get an upset here. If I could see Viviane Araújo like vetting out a fucking decision victory, using a lot of cage grappling, clinching, shit like that, just to make Natalia Silva uncomfortable, just to make her tire, so that those kicks and, you know, all of her striking behind it, because she throws the right hand or the left hand behind the kick also, just make it a little bit less dynamic, a little less powerful. And I could see her grinding out a decision like that. But I am going to go with Natalia Silva. To be fair to her, her win over Jasmine Jasudavicius, whatever, dude, has aged pretty good. And a couple of her other ones have also. So, you know, I'm not trying to shit on her too much. I just felt like in that Andrea Lee fight, the fight previous, she looked phenomenal. Like, absolutely amazing. But then because Andrea Lee's tough and the fight went a little bit longer, you kind of saw some of the holes in her striking game. She does have a lot of submissions on her record also, though, so she can always, you know, utilize that if she needs to. Moving up the card, to Randy Brown versus Muslim Salikov. I'm going to go Randy Brown here, but I'm a little concerned, I'll be honest. Muslim Salikov's pushing 40, right? And he will be at a massive reach disadvantage, so I don't know if his striking that he likes to utilize is going to work all that well. Randy Brown, I feel like, should be pretty easy for him to stay at a safe range. Also, it seems like over the last few years, Muslim Salikov's power has like severely diminished, right? He's got one knockout in the last 4.5 years, and it was over Andre Fiallo, who gets knocked out by fucking everybody. The guy's got no chin whatsoever. And I mean, in that time, he's gotten some good wins, but they say power's the last thing to go, and it doesn't seem like he necessarily has that anymore, right? He's nearly 40 at welterweight. He's lost 2 of his last 3. He got knocked out in one of those by the Leech, the evil Chinese man, Jing Ling. So, you know, hopefully Randy Brown doesn't get chinned because sometimes when he gets hit, it has me a little bit concerned. He kind of like flops all. It's almost Johnny Walker-esque, a little concerning at times. But I think that because of the massive reach advantage, height advantage, all that shit, he will be able to stay safe for the most part, and I think that he probably gets a unanimous decision victory here. Moving up the card to Renato Moicano versus Drew Dober. Dude, Renato Money Moicano versus the Grand Wizard Drew Dober. All right, this is a very fun matchup in my opinion. Renato, for some reason, has been inactive for over a year now, which is crazy. He last beat Brad Riddell, who's okay. Drew Dober actually lost to. But we all know that's because of Brad Riddell's skin color, okay? He was fighting a white man. Drew Dober historically doesn't do as well against white men. Now, for me, Renato Moicano's best bet is a submission here. The guy has literally 0 knockouts on his record at all, and Drew Dober hits like a fucking truck. Now, he's got a couple of submissions. He's got a couple of submissions at lightweight, pardon me, but I have a feeling that Drew Dober is going to be a lot harder to take down than guys like Brad Riddell, who came from a kickboxing background, or even Jai Herbert and guys like this who are a little bit smaller. I think Dober will be expecting the takedown. I think he'll be prepared for it. I think he'll have a bit of a lowered stance, a bit wider stance, and I think he'll be loading up, waiting to counter Moicano on an entry. Because while Moicano's pretty adept on the feet, I truly believe his best bet here is to get Drew Dober on the mat, right? Get those fucking long limbs around Drew Dober. We've seen Moicano get KO'd, by the way, at both weight classes now, so while he was getting finished at featherweight, you might think that it's a weight cut issue, right? But then he comes up to lightweight and he gets flatlined by Fiziev, or at the very least knocked out, right? He got knocked out by Chan Sung Jung. Jose Aldo finished him on the feet. It was standing, and then Fiziev finished him also. Drew Dober's got power on par with these guys easy, in my opinion, right? Also, the left hook is what got him out of there against Rafael Fiziev, and Drew Dober's got a gang of left hook KOs. Like, the guy, it's one of his best punches. So I could see him landing a left hook on Renato Moicano at some point in this fight, and I could see him causing real fucking problems for Renato Moicano, and then I could see Drew Dober getting him out of there. And I don't think that we got to worry about Drew Dober getting chinned the way that we, like, when he fought Matt Frivola hits hard. Do you know what I mean? He's a ginger. It's fucking in their DNA. You can't help it. But I don't think Moicano's a real knockout threat here. And I don't think that Drew Dober, despite him being knocked out a few times, I don't think his chin's gone. I think it's just the way that he fights. He's a fucking madman. And that's why we love him, dude. Also, if you look at who submitted Dober throughout his career, over like the last 5 years, it's Beneil Dariush and Islam Makhachev, right? So I think he'll be okay against Moicano here. Islam Makhachev is a massive lightweight, right? Whereas, like, that dude's never making featherweight if his life fucking depended on it. Also, his takedowns, are, in my opinion, are much better than Renato Moicano's. Beneil Dariush is one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in all of MMA, period. So, you know, there's that. Also, I don't think Beneil Dariush making featherweight either. Anyways, dude, moving up the card. Main event, Roman Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov. For me, this is a kind of an easy pick. Now, obviously, I could end up being wrong. I just don't know that I'd be able to justify to myself picking in the opposite way. Do you know what I mean? So, I'm going to go with Nasruddin Imavov to get this one done. For me, this is because Imavov is good on the feet, or at the least a fucking hell of a lot better than Roman Dolidze is, okay? Who lost a striking match to Marvin Vettori, dude, okay? So, on the feet, Nasruddin Imavov absolutely has the advantage here. Also, though, Nasruddin Imavov is a very good grappler, which is Roman's, in my opinion, his only path to victory here. Like, you look at his record, he's got a few knockouts on there. The vast majority of them are from ground and pound. They're not really on the feet, right? Unless it's against Phil fucking Hawes, okay? But I just don't think he's going to be able to dominate Imavov in the ground, or on the ground, pardon me, to get to a position where he could start land fight finishing blows, right? I think that, I don't even know if he'll be able to get Imavov down, but let alone get him in a very dominant position in order to land ground and pound and shit like that, right? You know, Nasruddin Imavov, we have seen him be the dominant grappler in multiple fights against good guys, in my opinion. I think he's beat better guys than Roman Dolidze has. Up until the Marvin Vettori fight, really, who the fuck did Roman Dolidze beat? Do you know what I mean? And as I said earlier, he looked very, very, very sloppy on the feet. And when you have a guy that understands both grappling very well and striking, distance management, all that shit, I think they're going to be a lot harder to take down. I don't think he's going to have an easy time even getting to Nasruddin Imavov, because Nasruddin Imavov, as I said, a very good grappler, knows what Roman Dolidze is looking for, but is also a pretty adept striker as well. So I just think he's going to be a lot harder to shoot on. I think he's going to have knees ready, uppercuts ready, shit like this, attacks up the middle. And I see him kind of picking apart Roma Dolidze throughout the first few rounds. And honestly, I could see him getting a late finish, 4th or 5th round or something like that, because I have a feeling Roma Dolidze is going to get fucking tired. Do you know what I mean? We've seen him look tired in fights before that were 3 rounds. So I could see him, if this goes past the 3rd, him being fucking drained and Nasruddin Imavov just having his way with him, essentially. Anyways, dude, that's it for UFC Fight Night, Roma Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov. This has been my picks and preview. Like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you with the next video. Bye-bye.